Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all had a great week. Before we dive into Chapter 2, think about Chapter 1 and add your thoughts on how sales has impacted you. Reflection can be a powerful tool that helps you to grow as a sales executive or leader. Okay, now let's dive into Chapter 2, the amygdala in the boardroom. When the no becomes a threat to survival. If Chapter 1 was about the high, Chapter 2 is about the horror. To the logical mind, a sales rejection is just data. It's a not right now or the budget isn't there. But to your biological hardware, the ancient reptilian part of your brain that hasn't had an upgrade in 50,000 years, a lost deal feels like being cast out of the tribe and left to freeze on the tundra. In the corporate world, we've sanitized this experience. We call it resilience or having thick skin. But your cells don't have skin. They have receptors. And when a major account you spent 18 months nurturing suddenly pivots to a competitor, your body doesn't read a spreadsheet. It triggers a systemic alarm response. The anatomy of the hijack. At the center of your brain sits a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Its primary job is simple: stay alive. It scans the environment for threats. In the prehistoric world, that threat was a saber-toothed tiger. In your 28-year career in telecommunications, that threat was a request for proposal, RFP, that went sideways. The false positive. The problem with the amygdala is that it cannot distinguish between physical threat and social economic threat. When a client says, "We're going in a different direction," the amygdala registers a loss of resources, commission, a loss of status, ranking on the leaderboard, and a loss of safety, job security. Within milliseconds, long before your revenue therapist logic can kick in, the amygdala initiates what psychologists call the amygdala hijack, the shutting down of the prefrontal cortex. The moment the hijack begins, your brain makes a biological executive decision. Thinking is too slow. We need to react. It shunts blood flow away from the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logic, strategy, and empathy, and sends it to the limbs and the primitive brain. This is why, during a high-stakes negotiation that starts to fail, you might stutter or lose your train of thought. Your logic center is literally offline. Feel a heat bloom in your chest. That's adrenaline prepping your heart for a fight. Experience tunnel vision. You lose the ability to see the big picture of the relationship and focus entirely on the threat of the lost deal. Fight, flight, or freeze, the sales manifestation. We are taught that these are the only three responses to trauma. In a sales context, they manifest in ways that are destructive to both the deal and the seller's health. The fight response, the aggressor. This is the salesperson who becomes argumentative when challenged. Biologically, their system is flooded with testosterone and adrenaline. They aren't trying to win the client over, they are trying to subdue the threat. The cost. You burn bridges. You destroy the oxytocin, trust, you spent months building because your biology has shifted from partner to predator. The flight response, the avoider. This is the most common cause of a dying pipeline. The seller experiences a no, and their biology associates that client with pain. To protect the self, the seller subconsciously stops calling. They flee the discomfort. The cost. Ghosting the client. You tell yourself you're giving them space, but biologically, you're hiding in a cave, waiting for the predator to leave. The freeze response, the analysis paralysis. This is the veteran who has been burned too many times. They get a difficult email and they sit at their desk staring at the screen for 3 hours, unable to type a single word. Their nervous system is overwhelmed. It has overloaded the circuit and shut down to prevent damage. Chronic rejection and the biological scar. The real danger isn't a single no, it's the cumulative load. If you spend 20 years in the GTA sales market, facing hundreds of rejections annually, your amygdala becomes hypersensitized. This is the core of seller's PTSD. In a healthy person, once the threat, the meeting, is over, The parasympathetic nervous system kicks in to rest and digest. But for a senior manager under constant quota pressure, the threat never truly leaves. You are living in a state of chronic hypervigilance. The physiological fallout. Cortisol overload. Cortisol is meant to be a short-term boost. When it stays in your system 24/7, it begins to eat away at your muscle tissue, disrupt your sleep, and, most importantly, suppress your ability to feel joy. The cold heart. To survive the constant biological battering of rejection, many veterans develop a thick skin that is actually emotional dissociation. You stop feeling the no, but you also stop feeling the yes. You become a wounded healer who can no longer heal himself. The revenue therapist's intervention. Rewiring the alarm. How do we stop a biological process that has been running for 28 years? We don't stop it, we intercept it. The 90-second rule. Biochemically, it takes exactly 90 seconds for a flush of stress hormones to process through your system. If you can stay biologically still for 90 seconds after a rejection without weaving a story about it, the high-intensity alarm will fade. Tactical tip. After a bad call, do not immediately dial the next number. Stand up. Change your physical environment. This signals to the amygdala that the combat zone has been exited. Co-regulation, the leader's burden. As a senior manager, my biology didn't just affect me, it affected my entire team. If I entered the room with high cortisol and a hijacked brain, my team's mirror neurons would pick it up instantly. They would begin to feel unsafe. The intervention. A leader must be the nervous system architect for the room. You must use your own calm, low heart rate, steady breathing to biologically co-regulate your team. You are a revenue therapist because you are stabilizing their biology so they can regain access to their logic. Summary. The boardroom as a battlefield. We like to think we are civilized professionals in suits, but under the surface we are a collection of ancient alarms. The seller's PTSD begins when we ignore these alarms for too long. When you retire, like I did, you finally realize that the stress wasn't in your head, it was in your blood. It was a chemical reality that you carried every single day. In Chapter 3, Mirror Neurons and the Empathy Burden, we will explore the cost of caring, how the very empathy that makes you a great revenue therapist can also be the thing that drains your biological battery to zero. Reflective exercise. Recall a time you lost your cool or shut down in a meeting. Can you remember the physical sensations? The cold sweat? The racing heart? That wasn't a failure of character, it was a biological hijack. How would that moment have changed if you knew you just needed to wait 90 seconds for the chemicals to clear? I hope you enjoyed this chapter. As an exercise for next week, think about a sale that dragged you down. Put a short note in the comments, and I'll review and offer some insights. Until then, thank you for listening, subscribe, and hit like. Lastly, happy selling.